This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual professional legal advice. The podcast information was carefully compiled from vetted sources and references. However, R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly cannot guarantee that you will not fall victim to a scam. Let's talk about scams. It's the must-listen show for anyone who wants to protect themselves and their loved ones from scams. Every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S E, and her guests will provide valuable insights and practical tips on how to recognize and protect yourself from scams. And now, here is your host, Joyce Petrowski.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Let's Talk About Scams. I'm Joyce Petrowski, founder and president of R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. You can find more resources on our website at roseadvocacy.org. You can sign up for our newsletters. We send them via email and also in the mail. You'll find our social media links. And we still have a handful of foursomes left for our golf tournament coming up in Phoenix on Friday, April 11th. You can find that under the events tab on the website as well. So we are going to do today's show. Lynn is back with us to talk about, it's part 2 of the antivirus, malware, and EDR protections, but we're going to get into how artificial intelligence is hindering those protections. So let's welcome Lynn back.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming back. So artificial intelligence.
Yeah, it's
As with any technology, it comes out for good, right?
Oh yes.
Scammers
the thing about it is
their advantage.
what I was going to say is the thing about artificial intelligence is it's the new buzzword. It's in all the, if you're looking, and especially if you deal in the investment community, everybody's talking about AI, and they're talking about AI companies. They're talking about cryptocurrencies tied around AI platforms. So it's definitely come into the forefront. But like everything else, when you have something that is as powerful as AI, it can be used for good, but it also can be used for bad.
Mm-hmm.
And really, it's a fantastic tool for criminals, because now they can do things where they couldn't do it before with a lot less from the standpoint of input on their behalf, because it will multiply and do billions of calculations in a short period of time, where before they didn't have that capability. So what happens is that on a normal situation, you had criminals that were out there, they were sending bots out in the tens and hundreds of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
With AI, you can send bots in the hundreds to 100 millions of bots. So it grows exponentially because of the power of AI.
Wow. Okay. So when they cast their wide net, it's even wider now.
It is. The thing that's interesting is always before the criminals have when they have software that they're using, they do it on the dark web. It's not been something we've seen on major platforms. Well, with AI, it's a whole different story. We're now seeing it on ChatGPT. We're seeing it on Telegram. We're seeing it on Instagram. We're seeing it on a couple of other different, you name it, a public platform where you have a social gathering, and it's now being advertised on those platforms. And so it makes it it's spreading it and making more people get involved in it that maybe never would have gotten in it because they didn't know anything about it.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, last week we talked about the antivirus, the malware, the endpoint detection and response, and how it was so critical to have this on all of your devices, including your mobile phone, because as you said last week, it's a mobile computer, right?
Yes.
But AI scammers are now, and hackers are using AI to hinder those protections, to try to bypass those. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, basically, the good news, there's bad news, good news. The bad news is it's proliferating really rapidly, more rapidly than we thought it would on the internet. But the good news is that the companies that we talked about last week that are out there, that are the top companies that deal with malware, spyware, virus, all these type of things that they deal with on a day-to-day basis, they're fully aware of what AI capability is because they're using AI to keep ahead of the AI crooks.
Got
So,
it.
it's a 24/7 job, and it's constantly changing. Every day it's something new. And so they got to find ways to protect and make sure that their systems are not hackable. But the problem you have is that no matter how good your software is, if a company puts it on their system or an individual puts it on their system, and they send out updates, but you don't update. The reason for them putting out the update is because they found a flaw that could be exposed through AI. And so therefore they're now closing that door. But if you don't upgrade and update your system, you've now opened the door up and you now are subject to, even though you've got the best software out there, because it's not the most current version of it, you expose yourself to being able to be hacked. And we're seeing more and more of that, and it's coming through email, text messaging, it's coming through video, it's coming through everything that you do on your phone, on your laptop, on your PC, tablet, whatever device you're using, everything that you use it for, they've got an inroad in. And the problem is they're so good at getting people's voices, they can replicate people's voices. And you think it's a loved one, you think it's a dear friend. In a company, you can think it's the CEO, the CFO,
Right.
anybody within a senior management of the company, or your supervisor, or somebody else in the hierarchy in the company. So you don't stop and think that it's not them because it sounds exactly
Sounds
like.
like
And
right.
so that's where the tricky part comes in. And there's more and more people are getting the phone calls, and it's grandson, granddaughter, it's son, daughter, and they swear they're talking to their grandchild or to their son or daughter.
Right. I remember when that scam, first came out, grandparent scam, right? They
Right.
impersonate your grandchild, and they didn't even know the name. If you, first of all, they didn't even know if you had grandchildren, right? And then
Exactly.
they evolved, and they were able to find the names of your grandchildren, a wide variety of different places. Social media is a gateway to a lot of information, but obituaries too, right? That
Oh,
lists
absolutely.
family members, right? In the obituaries. Um, so then they had the names, but then with this AI, it's easy to get voice recordings because a lot of people, their voices are out, whether mostly on social media, right? A lot of people do videos on Facebook, on Instagram, on TikTok, and all those different social media channels. But what if you use your voice for your voicemail recording? Your voicemail greeting,
Well,
right?
absolutely. The other
They
thing
can
that
get
you
it
have to
off
be
of that.
really careful of, there's a lot of systems now, they're giving you multiple authentications process to go through. You have it where you have to have a thumbprint, you have to have an eye print, you have to have voice. The problem with voice is if you use and you're using a PIN number, but you're using your voice, they can replicate your voice. Now it's not as easy to do the thumbprint, and it's not as easy to do the eye
Right,
when you're on your phone. But if they've got you on, say, Facebook or even on YouTube or TikTok,
right.
they can zero in with a camera and pick up your eye recognition, ironically, and they can then use that eye recognition to get past your eye recognition on your phone or your whatever device you're using. I
I
mean,
didn't.
the
Go ahead.
technology is advanced so great that it's scary.
So I didn't even think about that, right? I thought about the voice, but you're right. If they can zoom in and get a clear picture of your face and your eye with technology today, you're going to get all of those details that your device is going to need to recognize you, right?
Absolutely.
Even though it's them.
The one thing that we did, we had a situation that came up was really interesting. A person wanted to see if they could actually have a photograph or have somebody, they would put their thumbprint up on in front of the camera,
Okay.
and they would have somebody outside would take a picture of it and would be looking at it and record it and see if they could get it to verify on their system.
Did it work?
And in some cases they were really close, but it caused an alert to say you had to go to a security question. So it didn't allow it to get in, but it depends again on how much. But again, this was a static thumb being put
Right.
up in front of the camera, so the chances you doing that is slim and none.
Right.
But again, it shows you how diligent they are about going out and doing it. Uh, it's like I tell everybody, criminals work 24/7. They don't go on vacation. They don't
Right.
take breaks. And people go, no, no, they don't. Yes, they do. It's them and their minions that are doing it 24/7.
Right.
There's people like myself that we get by on 3 to 5 hours sleep, and so it's not. I'm literally almost on the internet 24/7 for over 20 years. So
Yeah.
for me, it's normal. And I know there's people. At one time, I had somebody say to me, it's like, "Do you ever sleep?" I go, "Yes, I do." It's just usually not usually when you're awake. It's a little different. That I have a different sleeping pattern than you do, but it's funny in that regard. But yeah, but the crooks are out there, and they're going to use every technique in their playbook that they can. And AI is just an enhancement of the tools that they've been waiting for years.
Wow. So how does AI come into play with these antivirus and malware and all these different protections that are out there to help you? I mean, how are they yeah, how are they bypassing that? If
Well, what
if
they
they're
want to
even
do is
bypassing it.
they can get the software just the same as you and I can get the software.
Right.
And they can take AI and start breaking it down to get the components and to get the codes and everything is put into the how it's all put together. And so how they can determine how did they put the software together, they can now break it down and figure out where are the securities, what kind of security encryptions are they
Awesome.
using, and
Whole
depending on the encryption, it may
yeah,
take them longer, but they can do it. What would take 10 years to do, they can do it in literally a couple hours.
with AI,
So
right?
and so what they do is they use a dual layer of encryption, so it makes it even more complicated for AI to penetrate that system. So again, you got to be they have to be 2 steps ahead of the criminal. They got to think like the criminal thinks, but be 2 steps ahead of what the criminal is going to do next.
Got it. So they have to anticipate
Yes,
what the
because the
what
software that they came out with last year is no longer. It's already been upgraded probably 2 times.
wow. So, it seems like every month, every other month, maybe once a quarter, we're getting updates on our mobile phones, right? With the software there. They want you
Yes.
to you can bypass doing the upgrades up to a certain point. Because sometimes I'll hit the, do it later. But then you get to a point and they're like, no, you can't do it later. It's going to be done tonight, right at midnight. Uh,
Yeah.
and and yes, there are some downsides when you do the upgrades on your mobile phone. Like this last time I have an iPhone, and when I did it, I don't know, sometime in the month of March, because it's April 1st now already.
Yes.
Um, um, I got into my calendar and it was all different the way it displayed, the way you did things. And I was like, wait a minute, I don't want this new calendar. I want my old calendar back. That's the way I know how to work it. Right. But you have to look at the bigger picture and go, well, they're patching different flaws that they've found, or they're giving more security because they've started to see criminals getting in certain areas. So it is for your protection, and you just have to the benefits far outweigh the risk, I guess you would say, is that you might have to navigate how to operate a certain program a little bit different.
Well, I've told you about the bad stuff. Let me tell you one of the good things about that comes with AI,
Okay.
and it's AI itself. because it takes a ton of memory capability in your system. So you're not going to get a computer for $799 and it's going to be able to run AI. You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars to get a computer to do it. It
Okay.
takes a tremendous amount of power in order to run those computers. So you've got to find some place where they have the cheapest electric costs per kilowatt hour that you can find anywhere in the world. So you limit them where they can go and where they can be located. So it helps law enforcement know where to kind of look from a standpoint of saying, well, we know these are the countries that have low electricity rates. So let's look, we can now monitor the electrical usage and see if we got spikes in whatever area of the country that it's happening in. So we know that that's a target area we want to look at. So,
Got
so there's the positive side of it. And the fact is that, yeah, you can go out on and it's cheap out on the web right now to buy the software that somebody's using. But the problem is to run it is where you run into the expense. And most people don't have that kind of money to spend for that kind of a computer in order for it to do it. And like I said, you just can't plug it in, because if you put it in your house and you turned it on, you probably blow every fuse in your house, or your circuit breaker would go out immediately because you couldn't run any appliances. It takes that much power.
Wow.
So it's a energy eater, and that's why they're building these big data centers, because they got to be able to have it where they can keep them cool, because you can't do it in your home because you couldn't put enough fans in your house. You couldn't even run the fans to keep it cool. So you're not going to have somebody just go out and start one in their garage, or start it, put it in their apartment or in their house and start becoming a cyber criminal and doing AI. Uh, there is that logistics part of it, and they're not even 100% there yet. So from that standpoint, until we get an electrical grid that can actually handle massive amounts of AI, it's still in its infancy stage. So the good news is it gives everybody else a chance to be able to get ahead of the curve. So when it does come in, they're already prepared for it. Like I said, they got to stay 2 steps ahead of all the bad guys. And so that's what they're doing, and that's where their focus is.
Wow. You don't even think about all of the operating costs, right?
Right.
Involved the electricity itself with having to run those types of programs. So it makes sense that that's where they would be, is in those big call centers. And, a lot of times, well, for instance, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Beekeeper.
No, I didn't.
So it's about this lady who lets these scammers into her computer. If I remember right, I'm not sure. It's a tech support, but I don't remember if they were trying to give her a refund on something, or if they had said she had a virus of some sort, right? And they get into her computer and they wipe out her personal bank accounts, and she's also a signer on a charity's bank account, and they wipe that out, and then it just goes down. But you got to see, that was one of the things I think that enlightened a lot of people, was that when her friend then went to find the people responsible for hurting her, um, it was these big call centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was going to these big office complexes, and they would have a whole floor, if not multiple floors. And there were just, in this movie in particular, there was like one ringleader that was instructing everybody and showing everybody how to scam somebody, but you had all these other people with their little microphones and headsets on, and all these computers and all of that, and then all these big screens. And so it enlightened people that this isn't just one person sitting by themselves. This is a big call center
Oh yeah.
that's out
Oh
there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the one thing that's really dangerous about AI, and it's important people remember this. It can do 10,000 times over what a regular computer can do. And for example, if you were getting now, the average user is not going to have this happen to them. But in my situation with when I had Eagle, because of who we were, what we were doing,
Right.
a normal day would be 38,000 security threats. a day.
Wow.
That's average. I mean, that was normal. If it was something that we were heavily involved in, that would jump into the hundreds of thousands. And this is back before there was this massive ability to do bots and all the other things. So this is we saw it started increasing from 2008 to 2010 to 2012 to 2015. It just was going like this, and then 2015 it went like this.
And that's right around where AI
No,
started.
AI hadn't come in yet. AI didn't really start coming in the marketplace until about 2022. It was limited at that point. 2023 was when it was really starting to come to into its own. And in 2024 was when it really started exploding. Again, it was one of those things where it progresses in, and then all of a sudden it just goes wham, it just explodes. And so we're right on the cusp of it exploding. But until we get the ability to have the power grid in order to be able to run those type of computers in mass, that it takes to run one of those computers, and it's unreal. That's the limiter right now of how rapidly it can grow. But the processing speed is incredible.
It's
What
phenomenal.
would take 6 months to do, it can do in a literal matter of hours. That's the
So,
difference in how much data it can go through in a minute. It's absolutely blows your mind away.
so to extrapolate out, you're no longer doing Eagle, and you had
No,
stopped that years prior to when AI really came out. But had you still been doing Eagle right now, instead of 100,000 threats a day, you probably would have been in the tens of millions of
oh
threats
yeah,
with
no,
AI.
the most we ever had security threats in one day was about 2.5 million.
Wow.
But that was again because of the situation that we were involved in. It was global, and the thing that but again, while we would be getting hit, you are subject to these hits coming against you, because there's going to come a point when you're going to be, and you're already there. You're a force that they have to deal with, because you're warning people and educating people to keep them from becoming a victim, and you're a target. You have a bullseye on you that I don't think you realize how big of a bullseye you really do have.
Well, let's hope not.
Well, the standpoint, when I say bullseye, they're targeting you from the standpoint they'll do everything they can to try to minimize your ability to reach the masses, to keep them from being able, for them to be able to get educated so they don't become a victim.
Got it. Okay.
You're
Yeah,
not,
I
you're
kind of
here,
figured starting
but
this at
you
some
could get here real quick.
yeah, that I kind of figured at some point, when more and more people became aware of what we were doing, there would be people out there that were try to stop us from getting the education out. So, but
Well, the neat thing is,
maybe
that
I should warn my cybersecurity company.
the neat thing is that they can't stop you from doing presentations out in groups, and so they may be able to get you slow. They might be able to take you offline for an hour or two, but they
Yeah,
can't stop you from doing, going out and doing seminars and things like that. So there's an advantage, you're not going to get this radio show taken down either. So from that standpoint, you're safe there too. So
very
again, you're in a situation where, as you get more and more known, and be honest with you, this radio show is opening that door for you, which is a great thing, because people need to know the information. But by the same token, you now have elevated your exposure to them saying, we got to start paying attention to this, to see what they're doing and how it's impacting our business.
So maybe
Welcome
I'll
to the
see it.
world.
It's really interesting because over the last 6 months or so, I'll get into our newsletter software, the emailed ones we do, because I send
Right?
them out every month. And then I've started sending out like a tip Tuesday every Tuesday. So there'll be one going out shortly after this show ends. But and if I see a huge uptick in the number of subscribers, I'll get in and look at the contacts, and every now and then I would see these really weird email addresses. And then the names associated with them were just a bunch of letters,
Mhm.
right? That didn't really make sense. And And so it just, it was a red flag that I kind of looked at and said, okay, is this a bot subscribing to the newsletter?
Yep.
Is
I
it-
will tell you it is.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I haven't seen it in a while, so I don't know if maybe they're getting the newsletter and then they're like, oh, this isn't anything. And
Actually,
so,
what it is it's called a test.
okay.
They're waiting to see if you purge them off you block them.
Okay. So then what's that going to tell them if I block them that it is actually a valid newsletter? Somebody's monitoring it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the other side of that coin but when you block them, it tells them that you're onto them. And
Oh, okay.
so it's one of those things that it has a dual purpose to it. And as long as you're not blocking them, they think they're getting through. If they're getting that email, that's what they want. They want to see how long is it going to take before somebody goes, wait a minute, not going to do this. You're onto them.
Got it.
And they always start small and then it'll accelerate. And it won't all happen at one time. It'll be a spike, maybe once a month, and it'll go back to normal, just almost nothing, and then it'll creep back up a little bit, and then there'll be another spike, and it'll happen 2 times in a month, and then it'll go back down again. So that they're constantly testing to see how you're going to respond to them.
Okay.
And so again, it's just this is the thing. We had situation where we told everybody, if you're emailing us, you have to have certain words in the subject line or it goes into a separate folder. And
Okay.
so that told me, now it doesn't mean that the ones going in that separate folder that are all fake and they're all trying to take us down.
Right.
But it segregates out so the people we really want to hear from are able to get in.
Got it.
But the other ones we can go through, and the other one you can spot, like you said, you're starting to see the pattern, and it's gobbledygook, and it doesn't make any sense. That's what they're doing. So my situation is a lot different than your situation because most of the stuff that was coming to me was all hate mail.
Yeah.
It was not nice.
I bet.
We always knew when we helped take down a major Ponzi because the hate mail came out of the woodwork, and the thing that people didn't get was, see, with them it's personal, with me it's business, and I never took it personally because I couldn't,
Right.
because it wasn't personal. It was because and to be honest with you, we valued how successful we were based on how much hate mail we got.
Oh, okay.
The higher the hate mail, the more successful we were.
Right. That makes
So we
sense.
knew we were having an impact because they were trying to shut us down and keep us from getting the information out. So for us, it was a barometer of how well we were doing. So we used that as a tool for us to be able to say, and if we had a measurement go down, and let's say they had 1 million people that were in it, and we didn't get at least 350, 400,000 hate mails, it was like we didn't do our job. I mean, that's the way we had to look at it. It was
Right.
like we really should have had 600 or 700,000 hate emails. So again, our situation was totally different than the situation you're in.
Right.
But by the same token, we used it as that was our tool to evaluate and judge how we were doing and how we were perceived in the marketplace. So again, and every forum that you're on, they got your email address, and you're out there. I mean, I had a video of me on the welcoming page. We had our address, we had our phone number. I mean, we had email address. We were hiding. And the reason why we couldn't hide was we told people, if somebody's not telling you who they really are, you don't want to trust them. You can't trust them. And
Right.
and that was a rule of thumb. It's like, well, how can we trust you? Because I got my name out there. This is real address. This is
Right.
real place. This is a real phone number, and
Right.
we answer the emails. And that made them understand we weren't just out. And it's like, that's how we do what we say we're going to do, and this is our way of proving it to you.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting back to the antivirus and the malware and that, it sounds like the best protection for the consumer is, first of all, to have it and to have it on all of your devices, including your mobile phone. And it's best to stay away from the free versions that we talked about last week. But, and a lot of them are very low cost subscriptions. But even, and then once you have it, you have to then step two is you have to make sure that you, every time there's an update, that you update the system. So it just increases your protection because it's
Absolutely.
security flaws.
It's the same thing with your operating system. If you're not updating and most systems are set up so you can do it automatically.
Okay.
But the problem with that is this, it won't always do it. If you, for example, if you had a power outage when it was time for it to automatically update, it's not going to
Okay.
update because it can't update because your system wasn't
Right.
on.
There's no power.
And it's not going to do it the next day because you had it set up at a certain day, certain hour that it was going to be done.
Got
And
it.
so that's the way you set up the automatic update. And so from that standpoint, you just always want to go in and check to make sure that your updates are the current. And if you miss one, do it. And
Okay.
we tell people, I know you've got it on automatic, but if you start relying on the automatic update, you could get yourself in a world of hurt.
Right.
It only
So,
takes a couple minutes for you to check to make sure that it updated.
so how would someone check to see if the update ran?
For example, Apple or Windows, Microsoft always comes out with update. They tell you, they send you a situation. If you go into your task, go into utilities and go into settings, and you can go in and you can see what version you're running, and
Okay.
your system will allow you to check for updates. And so you go ahead and click on to check for updates to see if you're current, and it'll come back and tell you. And there's one thing I was going to tell you last time, and it got away from me. But if you're on a Windows platform, you can, and you don't have antivirus on your system and malware and spyware on your system. If you want to know whether or not you are subject to risk on Windows on 10 and 11, you can go into the search bar and you can type in. I'm going to get this. I'm going to read it off because it's M as in Mary, R as in Robert, T as in Tom in a search bar. And it'll take you to a screen and you're going to check run as admin. And when you do that, there's going to be a drop down menu and it's going to tell you, you get your choice of running a partial, a full system check, or there's a third option in there that you can do, which is you select which ones you want to have done. So we just tell everybody, do the full system. It's going to take a while for it to do, depends what you got on your system. It's going to take a while for it to go through, but it will run and tell you if there's anything on your system that's there. It doesn't mean it's going to clear it and clean it, but you'll know if you do have it. And if you do, you can go to like all the different programs we talked about. Usually they will do a free test on your system. So you can go in and say, okay, I want you to test my system, and you already know that there's one or two things that are on there. And that's another way you can test to see how good these software programs are. Did they catch it? And the
Okay.
odds are they're going to catch it, and
Right.
they're going to say, yeah, and then and of course it'll delete it and get it off your system. But again, if I think they do the same thing in Apple. I don't use Apple, so I can't speak to Apple.
Right.
But if you go to Apple, you can find out if they have that capability. But if you go into settings or just go into your search and put that in, you're going to find out whether or not there's anything on your system.
Okay. And that was M as in Mary, R as in Robert.
T as in Tom.
T as in Tom. Okay. So that's interesting. So I would, because I'm not as technological savvy as you are. So I could type in the MRT, right, in the
Right.
search bar and have it come up, and I could, without doing it, I'm assuming that I could then pick, the full scan or whatever it is. But at some point, I'm wondering if it's going to get a little bit confusing.
It's
And
real
people are
simple.
going to be like, well,
There's only 3 steps. You type in MRT in your search bar.
okay,
You click on Run as Admin, and then you click the little box that says Run a full scan on my system.
got it.
That's all you got to do. It will automatically start doing the scan, and it'll
Okay,
run. And like I said, depending on how much you have on your system, it depends on how long it takes.
right.
Some can be done in a matter of 15, 20 minutes. Others it may take a couple of hours
Okay,
because I wanted to test it because I wanted to see how good it was, and I ran it on my system. And like I said, I got so much software out there and so many different programs and places we go that
to
most
take it.
people you don't want to go there. But the bottom line is, it took 12 and a half hours for it to run
Oh,
through
wow.
my system. But again, I've got so much stuff on my system. It's the
Right.
reason why it took so long.
Okay.
The average person is not going to take anywhere near that.
No, it could take
I'm
hours.
guessing, maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes,
Okay.
maybe an hour. It depends on how much software you have on your system, and that's really for laptops and for PCs. I'm not real sure about tablets. It's possibly there. I've never looked at tablet. I just know that they have it on the Windows platform that they have for the laptops and PCs, and it will do it.
Okay.
But like I said, I run 3 different security software packages on my system,
Right.
and I check them
Um,
against each other constantly.
so the other, I think then, so we talked about making sure you have those protections, the antivirus and malware, anti-malware and all that, and then making sure that you are scanning your computer or that it's always scanning, right? It's turned on all the time and it's always watching, but then doing the updates. But then I think there's a third part to that as well. And the third part would be having that trusted tech support person, because, you know, everybody's technological wherewithal is different. You're going to get in the population that we serve, the older adults, you're going to get some people that have a hard time operating their flip phone, and you're going to get other people like you that know a lot about technology and how to do different things. And so I think having that trusted tech support person, that if you're not comfortable doing the steps, that you can engage with them, and then they can remote in and do these steps for you, or if they have to make a trip and be there with you in person to do it, that can help navigate all of that.
Absolutely. We have a tech person,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't do it without him.
Yeah, absolutely, because there is so much stuff on the back end, right? That
Yes.
comes up. And I know with myself, I'll be like, a lot of times if I'm not sure how to do something in a certain program, I'll Google it, right? How do you do this in this program? And it'll give me the directions, and I follow the directions. And sometimes it's like, wow, that was pretty easy. It worked. Other times it's like, well, now I don't know what I'm supposed to do, because there it seems like they've missed a step in these directions. And I'm afraid if I do this, I might ruin something or I might lose files. So that tech support person that you know, like, and trust is probably one of the number one things you should have on your plan. Even
Oh,
if you're
absolutely.
even if you don't have a need for it right now, you should have somebody, because that need will arise. And you know exactly what you're going to do. I'm going to call this person and have them help me navigate this.
Exactly. I totally agree. But I do want to. We talked before the show started. I do want to warn everybody
Uh-huh.
that we got a security alert that Sam's Club was hacked,
Oh, wow.
and they were able to breach. It's not known the extent yet as to how much they were able to penetrate and what information they got, because it just happened.
Got
And
it.
so they're probably in the next 48, 72 hours, you're going to be hearing from, and especially if you're a customer of Sam's Club, you're going to
Okay.
hear from them. But you just need to be aware that start watching and monitoring everything, because if they got emails, passwords, things of that nature, bank accounts, credit card numbers, you
Right.
really want to be careful and start monitoring everything really closely. It's real simple to do. You can actually, what you can do is you can actually go to your credit card companies and put an alert on it
Yes.
and any activity, and they will call you and want to know if it's you.
Yes.
And
That's perfect.
I
That's
automatically
one of
have
the
it.
tips we give
I,
to
I just
people.
automatically have it on my system. So if
Yeah.
I'm doing something and it's out of the ordinary, that they know it's, and especially if I'm traveling across states
Right.
or something, I'm someplace else, I get an alert immediately. Is this you?
Right.
And when they confirm it's me, and of course, if it's me, of course, I say yes. But uh, but yeah, you really want to make sure that they're aware that there's a possible security breach and you could be a victim, and you want to be set up on their alert system.
Right. And I think one of the things people do, and they should do when these breaches happen and they find out about them. And so with the Sam's Club, anybody that has an account with Sam's Club online, you need to go in immediately and you need to change your login. A lot of times they say just change your password. I'm of the nature of saying change your username and your password, but um I, as I said that, I'm sitting here thinking it's pretty common to go in and change your password. Um, do companies just automatically let you change your username without having to set up a whole new account?
It depends on the company.
Yeah.
They're starting to get more security conscious, and so therefore a lot of them will do it. But you can also go to their tech support if they're and their org, and whatever company it is, and say, hey, here's the situation. I really want to change this. What can
Yeah.
I do?
Right.
And let them walk you through it, and
Yeah.
they'll work with you. If they don't let you change your username, uh,
Definitely change the
but
password.
definitely the I know this is going to sound overkill, but it's not. If your password is under 20 characters, you can be hacked in about 3.5 to 5 seconds.
Even if it's 16,
Yep.
even with all of the four.
Symbols, characters.
So
uh,
they've advanced now with that because
yes.
our materials that we updated a couple months ago, the tech places, we're still the cybersecurity places we're still saying around 16, but I've been in the presentation saying, it's not going to be too much longer and they're going to bump it up to say 20 or 24 or, you
Yeah.
know, so now they're at 20, so we're going to have to update that.
Well, I'm just saying you're smart to do it because, as we've been talking, the reason why AI,
There you
they
go.
can do in milliseconds what it would take 20 seconds for something to be done.
Right. So if it
And,
took
and people don't realize it's an algorithm that they use in these and behind the scenes that sets up these passwords.
right.
And it's amazing how they can key on it. The other thing, one of the reasons why I highly recommend that if somebody gets one of these software packages, that they have a VPN, that
Okay.
you get that part of it. Because when you go online, you want to use a VPN. And the reason being is if you go to a website or you use a search engine, whatever when you're using whatever using as your web browser, you're being tracked when you go out there, and that's how you get all these emails from all these different
Right.
places. Where did these emails come from? Because
I
they're
never signed
tracking
up for
you.
these.
They
Yeah.
know what websites you've been to, and they will put you on a list, and the companies pay for that list. So they're going to target you because you're in that category that you were looking at, and they know exactly what you were looking at. So
Right.
when you use a VPN, they can't do that
Right.
because you're not using a real return IP number. It's not a valid IP number. It's valid from the standpoint of the computer, but it's not valid for you
Got
because
it.
it's basically never land.
Right. So like whenever I travel, no matter where I'm at, I always turn my VPN on. I always have it on. And I could be out of the country. And when I put my VPN on, I might tell it to pick, a place in the United States to show that that's my location.
Right,
Right.
right.
So that, yes, that is, it's, so it sounds like it's gotten to the point, it's not just when you're going to be on public Wi-Fi or you're going to be on Wi-Fi that, yes, it might be password protected, but again, how many people have that password because they don't change
Exactly.
it very often? You really should be on the VPN, um, anytime, you get online, because it will encrypt everything that you're sending, and then companies won't be able to track your information to then automatically sell your information. Because you could go in a lot of companies, when you log into their when you get on their website, they have that notification about the cookies, and you can go in, and I always take everything off, turn everything off except for the strictly necessary. But I've often wondered what is in the strictly necessary, right?
Yeah, and
Right.
it
And
varies by site.
I'm sure there's a 100-page document in fine print, but it's like, I'm going to need a week's nap after I read that. Right. And then am I even going to understand it? So it's really
Exactly.
good to have the VPN on all of the time to protect you. And I think we talked about it last week. You said a lot of these antivirus, anti-malware companies, software have, a specific level that you can get into where it gives you access to a VPN,
It
and
does.
have it on your cell phone, and you should
Oh,
be running
yes.
all the time on
Yeah.
your cell
Anytime you're doing online banking on a cell phone, you should be using a VPN. Now,
phone.
understand something. Your bank is going to confirm that it's you,
Mhm.
because it's not going to show up as you. It's because they're going to go, wait a minute, it was your username, your password, but
Right.
the VPN is not registering, and we don't recognize this computer, we don't recognize this device. So they're going to send you a text message if it's on your phone, or they're going to send you an email if it's on your computer, and they're going to say, "Is this you? Confirm it's you." And there's things you're going to have to do for that, and they'll give you a link that you go to confirm it's you.
Or that
So
reCAPTCHA and those
yeah,
different things that they'll be able to tell if it's a bot or something like that. So, that's
exactly.
interesting. I always tell people, you really, if you're gonna do any sort of banking on your phone, please understand the risk that you're taking, and then weigh the risk benefit, to it. And then you really have to ask yourself, if I want to do banking on my phone, what information can someone get, and how can that negatively affect me? And I look at it as, they can get into my bank account. And I don't want that. I don't want, I see that I'm buffering now a few times. I haven't done that in a few weeks, so I don't know what's going on. But anyways, I get it. It's a convenience in this fast-paced world, but I think that we just have to stop and think before we just go to do all of these things, especially on our mobile phones.
Exactly. Uh, I always tell people, just pretend like there's somebody looking over your shoulder every time you get on your phone to do anything.
Right. Yeah.
And would you do it if somebody was looking over your shoulder? What would you do?
That's another good analogy, right? If someone was looking over your shoulder, what would you do? I'm going to start using that one now.
Come, my guess.
Uh, um, shoot,
The big thing about AI I want to leave everybody with is this: it is so automated that it can do so much in such a short period of time. It's almost it's so difficult to get your mind wrapped around just how much it can process in such a short period of time. And like I said, what normally was tens to 100,000 bots, they can do tens of millions to hundreds of millions of bots in less time. And and it's probably 1/10 the time it took to do 10 to 100,000 under the old system. So as you know, and technology is great, and it's great to have the advanced speed and all the abilities that's ever built into it. But think about this: Chat GPT is already is antiquated. It's no longer really that good. It's old. It's ancient now,
wow,
and it seems like it just yesterday that it started. It's already outdated.
that's interesting.
It's why the when the Chinese came out with their program, it's so much more advanced than Chat GPT. It's like this.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so the only reason why I was never a big fan of TikTok because it was owned by China. I don't care what they say, it was owned by China. They had access to your information. The other thing that people don't realize is your cell phone they know where you are.
Yep.
And people don't realize that you're broadcasting where you are. It's the same thing, because again, it comes off of the system you're operating on your cell phone. It identifies where you are and what you're doing and your exact location. And that's a good thing in some ways, because if something ever happened, they would be able to pinpoint where you are and get emergency help to you.
Right.
But by the same token, it's also bad from the standpoint, if somebody really wanted to find you, they can find you.
Right. Yeah. So another good reason for the VPN. But one thing that I wanted to mention on when we talked about the Sam's Club hack and everybody updating their passwords, if you have a Sam's Club account, I think what some people don't think to do is to take it one step further. If you have reused that password that you had on your Sam's Club account, you need to go to any other account that you've reused that password, that same password, and you need to update that.
Oh, absolutely.
And then I would seriously think about, do I want to continue to reuse my password? No, let's get a different password in there.
Yeah, every account you have should have a different password. There should never be a duplicate anywhere.
Yeah.
The other thing is, when you go in and do it, make sure you set up
two-factor authentication.
Two-step authorization.
Yep.
And like I said, it's getting to the place where it's just going to be the big thing is the one thing I think is going to be the hardest for them to do is going to still be the thumbprint. The eye print they can get because it can be done, but the thumbprint, because depending on your age and how much you wear on your fingers you've had, it's harder to get when you're looking, when it's actually there and it's actually scanning the scan will pick up what a camera won't pick up.
Got it. Okay. All right. So I'm being told it's time again. We ran out of time again, Lynn. So, well, that's good. Thank you so much for all this information. And yeah, AI. Wow. Lots of good, but you also have to be careful, and you have to even protect yourself more because of all this artificial intelligence that's out there. So thank you for all this, for everything. And we're going to have you back soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed every minute of it.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining me today on Let's Talk About Scams. That was a lot of information. So to recap, with your antivirus, your anti-malware system, make sure that it's running all of the time and look to see that it has the VPN, the virtual private network in there. You're going to want to take advantage of that whenever you're online. Make sure you have it on all of your devices. And then we also talked about with the artificial intelligence and how they're trying to get in on the antivirus and anti-malware and determining how they operate. So all the more reason you need to verify everything, no matter how it comes into you. You need to verify whether it's a person, a company, whatever. You need to verify that the contact is actually appropriate, is actually legitimate. And then we mentioned the Sam's Club had a hack where people that have accounts with them are going to be finding more information out in the near future, but you're going to want to go in right away and change that password. And also, if you have reused that password on any other accounts, please change those passwords and make them different passwords. And now it's not 16 characters anymore. We're up to 20, if not more. So you might want to consider getting a password manager as well to help you get those, to help you get the strong passwords. They can generate those for you as well. So don't forget to get to our website, roseadvocacy.org. You'll find our links for our emails, our email and mailed newsletter, our social media links. And we will see you next Tuesday. Thank you.
Well, that's all the knowledge for this episode. Tune in every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Time on K4HD Radio at k4hd.com as Joyce explores a variety of knowledge so you have the power to make scam protection your healthy habit. And until then, feel free to reach out to Joyce and let's talk about scams.